The United Nations General Assembly had seen its share of controversy over the decades, but nothing like what happened today. The tension was so thick, it felt like even the air was holding its breath. Benjamin Netanyahu sat hunched over his notes, flanked by aides who looked like they'd aged 5 years and 5 hours. Cameras were already trained on him. Whispers in multiple languages filled the massive chamber. Everyone knew why they were there. President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso had issued an ultimatum heard around the world: 72 hours or Africa will begin severing diplomatic ties with Israel. It was bold, unfiltered, and unapologetically African now. The deadline had expired and all eyes turned toward Netanyahu. As he rose to approach the podium, the room quieted, not out of respect but anticipation. The Israeli Prime Minister adjusted his tie. The weight of the last 3 days showed in his posture. He wasn't the defiant, dismissive figure from weeks earlier. He looked like a man who had been cornered. He began to President Traoré and to the great people of Burkina Faso. If there was any misunderstanding, any perception of insult, it was never my intention. Right there, you could feel it. He wasn't taking responsibility, was minimizing, dodging. He went on for nearly 4 minutes repeating vague platitudes about shared values and regional cooperation, but still no apology, no acknowledgement of the insult, no mention of Africa's rightful outrage. And then, in what felt like a desperate PR move, Netanyahu extended his hand toward Traoré's section of the chamber, a symbolic handshake, a gesture that had worked for decades with other leaders. But this time it did. President Traoré stood up. He looked straight at Netanyahu, then turned his back, walked out. No words, no drama, no warning, just silence. In that silence, it was deafening. You could feel the entire chamber freeze. Netanyahu stood alone, hands suspended in the air, the most humbling image of his political life. Camera snapped. Delegates stared. Some whispered. Some gasped. But Traoré didn't flinch. He walked out slowly, flanked by his security team, his head high, his eyes focused. Outside the chamber, reporters rushed to ask him why he didn't respond. Said only this: Africa does not shake hands with disrespect. Clip alone has now been viewed over 38 million times on social media. #trial walks away was trending in over 20 countries. Commentators from the US to South Africa called it the boldest act of modern diplomacy. In Kenya, university students took to the streets chanting, "Respect is earned, not begged." In Nigeria, activists unveiled murals of Traoré walking away from a crumbling wall with Netanyahu's image breaking behind it. And in Paris, thousands of African diaspora youth staged a silent demonstration in front of the Israeli embassy, standing still for 72 minutes in tribute to the deadline that Netanyahu ignored. This wasn't just political. This was personal. For too long, the voices of African leaders had been patronized, misked, softened, or erased. But Traoré, he made his message loud without saying a word. And that terrified the establishment. Western media tried to spin it. Some headlines read diplomatic misunderstanding at UN. Others called it a missed opportunity for dialogue. But the people weren't fooled, because what the world witnessed wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a moment of clarity. A global leader failed to apologize for publicly mocking the intelligence, leadership, and dignity of an entire nation and the continent it represents. And the leader of that nation chose not to stoop, not to argue, but to walk away. That is what power looks like. Even former diplomats were stunned. A retired EU ambassador said, "In my 40 years of service, I've never seen such composure." It was devastatingly effective. Meanwhile, Netanyahu's silence since the walkout has only deepened the crisis. No follow-up statement, no press conference, nothing. Because what can he say? The world saw the moment. Still frame of Traoré turning his back is now etched in the minds of millions. And perhaps most importantly in the minds of African youth, because this wasn't just a slap at disrespect. It was a blueprint, a roadmap for what self-respect on the world stage actually looks like. No shouting, no graveling, just grace under fire. So the next time a leader tries to insult or patronize an African head of state, they'll remember this moment. They'll remember Traore walking away and Netanyahu left alone, reaching for a handshake that never came. Where are you watching from? Are you in Africa, Europe, Asia, America? Drop your country in the comments. Let your voice be part of this movement. Like this video if you believe in dignity before diplomacy. Subscribe to Traore Uprising for more truth the mainstream won't touch. Africa is speaking. It's the toe,